Good morning, Year 8. We're going to move away from algebra this week and have a look at a topic that I believe that Miss has done with you, which is Pythagoras' theorem. It's a shape and space topic, so it's to do with maths that you sort of draw, if you like. Anything to do with shape or measure, we put under the heading of shape and space. So this is a 2-lesson topic for us this week. And in the first lesson, I'm just going to run you through the basics of doing a question using Pythagoras' theorem. So these are the questions I want you to try today. Just 8 questions, and I'm actually going to do 2 of them now. And then I just want you to try the other 6, the bronze and the silver. Gold is optional for those that are really keen or really get this. I'm not even going to explain how to do gold. They're a little bit different, but if you know the topic well, you might be able to take the gold on. But if not, don't worry, I'll say something about them next lesson. So I'm just going to run through question 1 of bronze and silver, and you're going to do questions 2, 3, and 4 in your exercise books. Okay. You will need a calculator for this. So the first thing you do is you draw the diagram. I'm going to copy that diagram out. Even though it's there, I'm going to copy it out. So you draw the diagram. It doesn't have to look exactly the same in terms of lengths. So that is the diagram. This is a triangle, which I'm sure you're all aware of. And moreover, it's a right-angled triangle, which hopefully some of you are aware of from the fact that they tell you that it's a right-angled triangle by something in the diagram. This little square here indicates that this is a 90-degree angle, very important angle in maths, sometimes called a corner, and it measures 90 degrees. Pythagoras' theorem only works if you have one of these 90-degree angles in your triangle. So look out for it, and if you see it, think, I could use Pythagoras. So what is Pythagoras then? Well, it's a way of working out the missing side of the triangle if you know the other 2. And I'm just going to take you through how you would use it in this question, which is question 1 from bronze, and then I'll do the same for the silver, because they're slightly different. So you start by start by writing down what Pythagoras' theorem is, and it's always the same. It's a squared plus b squared equals h squared, which is just an equation. We've been doing lots of work with algebra last week, but it's an equation where the a and the b and the h actually stand for something to do with the triangle. And they are, in fact, the a, the b, and the h, the 3 sides of the triangle. And you just need to label them on the diagram so you know which one's which, and you can use the formula. Start with the h. Why do we use h? Because it stands for hypotenuse. Okay, let me just write that word somewhere for you so you can see it. Hypotenuse. And it's the longest side of the triangle. Now, the longest side of a right-angled triangle is always the side that's opposite the right angle itself. So this is the longest side here, h. That means the other 2 must be a and b. So I'll label those up, a and b, like that. Okay, so we've got our triangle labelled up. Let's actually answer the question. I'm just going to write Pythagoras' theorem again here underneath. This is how you'll set it out. And then I actually use 2 colours. I go back to the original colour and I will put in the information. So A is 6, B is 3, and H is X. There we are. I've transferred all the information from the triangle into the equation. Now this is where you might need your calculator, because you need to work out the value of the left-hand side. This one's not too bad, and you might be able to do it in your head. But I'll do it on a calculator just to show you. So 6 squared plus 3 squared. 6 times 6 plus 3 times 3 is 45. So the whole of the left side can be replaced with 45. And I get 45 equals x squared. Okay, so it doesn't say 45 equals x, which would be the final answer if it did. It's not saying that that's 45 along there. It doesn't look like it would be 45. So we must have one more step to do to get the final answer. And hopefully you know what it is, but if not, I shall tell you anyway. You have to do something to both sides, which is going to turn an x squared into an x, and that thing is to square root. Square rooting is where it's not something you can do in your head. You will need to use your calculator for this because the answers, in most cases, come out to be quite nasty looking. So square root of 45 is, you need to press this special SD button on your calculator to get it to give you the decimal answer, and it's 6.7. I'm asked to give the answer to 2 dp, so in fact I'm going to need to write down 6.71. Just look at that, it says 0 there, but hopefully you've done decimal places earlier in the year and you'll know that I have to change that to a 1 because the next number in the decimal is an 8, and if that number is 5 or more you have to round up. So this is 6.71. So my final answer is x equals 6.71. Now at the very end I can put the unit back in, which is centimetres, and then in brackets I write to 2 dp to tell people that I have rounded the answer off to 2 decimal places. So that is question 1 of the bronze. Questions 2, 3 and 4, these ones are basically done in exactly the same way. The triangle might be drawn around a different way, but you can still label it up with an A, a B and a H for each of them, and then work out the value of x by subbing into the equation. Hopefully you'll be able to give those a good old bash, and as always you can always ask for my help if you need it. So that's the bronze question 1, and I'm going to do the silver question 1. The silver one, this one here, doesn't look a lot different from that, but there is something different about it, which you'll hopefully see in a minute once I've drawn it. So I'm copying that out now. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay, so this time the right angle is here. This is the x. This time this is 6 centimetres and this side here is 20 centimetres. Don't think for one moment that these diagrams are drawn to scale. They're certainly not. They're just drawn any old how. Okay, here we go again then. So I'm going to start answering the question down here by writing a squared plus b squared equals h squared. Nice and simple, always the same. Now all I do is now label up the sides, and once again I start with the h, the hypotenuse. Remember I said it was opposite the right angle, opposite the 90-degree angle, so this is the h this time. Okay, we actually know what it is this time. In the last example we were finding it, but this time we know it, it's 20. Okay, and now we need to label the other two a and b, and you can do this either way round. However, if you're trying to find one of these two sides, then I would advise you to label the one you're trying to find the A and the other one the B. So try and remember that. It does work if you don't remember that, but it just makes it easier to see what to do when you're putting the numbers into the equation. So try and remember to label the one you're trying to find with an A if it's one of these two sides that you're trying to find. Okay, now it's very similar to the last question now. I go back to my black pen and I put the information into the equation. So this time I've got x squared plus 6 squared equals 20 squared, like that. Okay, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work out sorry, I'm not going to do it that way. I'll just say that again. I'm going to start by trying to get the left side of the equation just to say x squared. So I need to remove the plus 6 squared from from this side. Now if you remember how we did this last week when we were doing algebra equations, you do that by doing the opposite, which is to take away 6 squared from both sides. So if I take away 6 squared from both sides, that is what I get. Okay, so each side has had 6 squared taken away from it. Take away 6 squared from this side, it disappears, and then I'm just going to write it on the end there, take away 6 squared from this side. Okay, so that's your first step, the only really complicated step in doing this. Next, I get my calculator out again, because I need to work out what 20 squared minus 6 squared actually is. So 20 squared minus 6 squared is 364. I get x squared equals 364. Remember, that doesn't mean that this side is 364. That's obviously nonsense. It doesn't mean that because I now have to square root both sides, which will make it now say x equals the square root of 364. I've run out of space, so I wouldn't normally do this. I'd normally work down the page, but I'm going to do it over here. On my calculator, I type in the square root of 364. Remembering to press this special button here. And this time I've got 19.078. There we are again. I've got this, I've got to give the answer to 2 decimal places, which means chopping off there. But because I've got an 8, I've got to round up. So my final answer is 19.08 to 2dp. And that's it. I'd encourage you to copy out my 2 examples before you attempt the actual questions. By doing that, it will help you understand how to set the questions out. They all look like that for the bronze, and they all look like that for the silver. Okay, I'd really like to see more of you turning in your work and also taking a photo of your work. Some of you are doing that every lesson. Thank you very much when it's appropriate. Some of you are not. And you need to do that so I know that you're doing the work. If you're having any difficulty, please don't be afraid to contact me. Just send me a message and I will help you if I can. Have a good day. Oh, one more thing. I said this was a 2-lesson thing, and that's because next lesson you're going to be doing a little bit of a kind of it's not really a game, a sort of a picture thing with this. You're going to be using this sheet here to try and identify the missing picture. More of that tomorrow though. Have a good day, Year 8.